Jim Jordan sends 3 subpoenas to Biden officials. We know them as Dr. Rochelle Walensky over from the CDC, Jen Easterly, and James Rubin. And the subpoenas came after several letters were drafted. The first one from Jim Jordan on behalf of the Judiciary Committee. Ranking member Jerry Nadler got a copy of it, but this is from Jim Jordan. From the Committee on the Judiciary, April 28th, sent to the director of the CDC, Dr. Rochelle Walensky. Says, Dear Dr. Walensky, the Committee on the Judiciary is conducting oversight of how and the extent to which the executive branch has coerced and colluded with companies and other intermediaries to censor speech. Footnote 1, see generally an article from The Intercept posted 2022. Says to develop effective legislation, such as the possible enactment of new statutory limits on the executive branch's ability to work with social media companies and other companies to restrict circulation of content, the Committee on the Judiciary must first understand how and to what extent the executive branch coerced and colluded with companies and other intermediaries to censor speech. So we want to know what you have done to get here. To this end, we have asked for communications between the CDC, private companies, other third-party groups, other nonprofit organizations, in addition to other information. Your response without compulsory process has, to date, been inadequate. Saying we've already asked for your voluntary compliance on this. They write that the Twitter files and other public reporting have exposed how the federal government has pressured and colluded with big tech and other intermediaries to censor certain viewpoints on social media and other media in ways that undermine First Amendment principles. And of course, if you're watching this, you are very likely a person who has seen other content creators, other people on the internet be censored, deplatformed, some people debanked, some people prosecuted for saying things and doing things that in prior eras would be considered free speech or would be non-prosecutable. The First Amendment prohibits, they continue, government officials from imposing viewpoint-based censorship, meaning you can't say that one person is allowed to say something because they have a different viewpoint. Debate must be open and viewpoint neutral if you're going to limit conversations. The state doctrine stands for the proposition that government officials may not circumvent constitutional strictures by using private actors. In other words, you can't outsource your censorship. The First Amendment applies to the government, and if the government is outsourcing that, they're saying, well, we're not censoring anybody. Twitter censored it, not us. And if Twitter censored it, then the government is immune because they did it of their own volition. Well, that's not true. We saw that the government was acting and basically twisting their arms into doing it, saying we want reports, we want updates. And there's a number of Twitter files, and we've covered most of them, except the last 2 or 3. So you can't outsource it, whether through coercion, through encouragement, through entwinement, through joint participation. You can't do that to accomplish what the government cannot do directly. Saying numerous documents made publicly available reflect the weaponization of the federal government's power to censor speech online, directly and by proxy, saying it is necessary for Congress to gauge the extent to which the CDC coerced, pressured, worked with, or relied upon social media and other tech companies in order to censor speech. The scope of the committee's investigation includes understanding the extent and the nature of the CDC's involvement in this censorship. What kind of pressure were they putting on YouTube? We got medical misinformation strikes here. We got a medical misinformation strike for the Joe Rogan debate when CNN was saying he was using horse dewormer. And we appealed that and won. But I think another one for medical misinformation struck at some point. On March 22nd, the committee wrote to the CDC seeking voluntary cooperation with our oversight. Can you please cooperate with us? We're Congress. Can you work with us? Among other things, we asked for simple communications between the CDC and private companies. What were they saying to Twitter and Facebook and Google and YouTube? We also wanted internal CDC communications and communications between the CDC and other third parties discussing content moderation. But to date, The CDC has failed to produce any documents responsive to the committee's request, saying pursuant to the rules of the House of Representatives, the Committee on the Judiciary has jurisdiction to conduct oversight on these matters concerning civil liberties to inform about legislative reforms. In addition, our House rules, H.R. 12, and the Select Subcommittee on the Weaponization are authorized to investigate issues related to the violation of civil liberties of citizens of these United States. And so accordingly, and due to the CDC's inadequate voluntary compliance, Walensky, please find attached a subpoena. Very sincerely, your friend, Jim Jordan, United States Congress. That was submitted on April 28th. And she's not the only person who got one of those. A couple other people did too. Jen Easterly got a nice little note on this Friday. April 28th, also from the Committee on the Judiciary. Basically the same letter. And so let's see if we can tease out anything unique about this, because this is a different agency. What did they do? CISA, we listened to a lot of them. They were telling us about infrastructure and about elections and about no evidence about things and all sorts of stuff. And we heard Christopher Krebs, I think he had the kind of long hair dude. You know, he was kind of like broed out a little bit. And he was talking to us all about utmost secure. Remember, what did they say all the time? Most secure in history, something like that. Most secure in history or something. All of these people were a part of these agencies. They came out and they put on their suits and ties. And they, no. So they write to this agency. Now, he's not there anymore, but this is the new person in charge. Her name is Jen Easterly. The Committee on the Judiciary is conducting oversight. Executive branch is involved in this. We have asked for communications from CISA and other private companies. Your response has been adequate. The Twitter files show you guys are involved in this, and numerous documents made available show that you have been involved. And so it's necessary for us as Congress to gauge the extent to which CISA pressured other social media companies to get involved. We wrote to you previously in March asking for voluntary cooperation. You have failed to respond. We're authorized to investigate this. Accordingly, you get your subpoena. Jen Easterly, enjoy it. Please find attached a subpoena, courtesy of your friend, Jim Jordan. And she is not the only person, the last person, and you know this name because we've talked about this person here a bit, in particular related to the Twitter files, but Special Envoy and Coordinator of the Global Engagement Center. This was one of those weird agencies that was sort of created underneath the wing of the State Department that was really focused on foreign misinformation. They write, Dear Mr. Rubin, Committee on the Judiciary is conducting oversight of how and the extent to which you have been involved in restricting content and deplatforming users. The GEC has not responded appropriately. Numerous documents show you're involved, that you may have pressured, coerced. Okay, nothing actually interesting to extract from this one. Same thing, Mr. Rubin, you get a subpoena too, courtesy of your friend, Jim Jordan. So 3 different subpoenas go out to 3 different agencies. People in the Biden administration all getting those, and we'll see what they do. We'll see how the response looks from the executive branch, whether they comply or whether they challenge them in a court of law. But more will be revealed. The good news is that Jim Jordan's doing something. We like to see that out of Congress. And in this case, the Republicans are exercising the same powers that the January 6th Select Committee exercised. They were out there saying, well, we can basically do whatever we want. We passed a House resolution that created us and gave us all sorts of power. And there were no courts that wanted to get involved and interfere with the internal operations of Congress back then. So the Select Committee had full reign to do whatever they wanted. And censorship and the First Amendment are pretty important issues to Americans. It's the First Amendment for a reason. And so if Congress decided to give themselves authority to go investigate why government entities are outsourcing their censorship efforts to third-party private companies and thinking that's acceptable, Congress may want to get involved in that to make sure that doesn't happen again, which would be a good thing. Because how can a democracy, as they like to say, function when a country that has democratic principles is layered upon free speech? happens to be the First Amendment. But they don't like it. They think that it challenges the narrative, and so they'll create structures to try to clamp down upon it. Jim Jordan is going to investigate it. Of course, we'll continue to cover.